Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.
Hi, I'm Cherry Johnson with Watauga County Arts Council. You know, in The Wizard of Oz, there's a man behind the curtain. Well, guess who's the man behind the curtain with the Arts Council? This is Mike Wise. Many of you probably don't know Mike, but many of you have been impacted by Mike over a lot of years. When I was hired over 21 years ago, Mike was one of the key people that was in that committee that hired me. But not only that, but my first year, had it not been for Mike, I might not be here today, because he literally walked me through the entire year of the Arts Council, talked to me all about the ebb and flow of the Arts Council, and helped me get through each piece of it. And over the years, Mike has been very close to the Arts Council, sometimes closer than other times, but in the last 6 years at least, you have been extraordinarily close to the Arts Council. You've been our president.
Well, thank you for that high praise. Yes, I've been the president for the last 6 years, and according to our bylaws, that once you have served 2 terms on the board, 3-year terms, you have to take a break. So I'm moving into my break period.
If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't let him go.
I thank you for that too. I'm very confident, though, with the new leadership that is coming on.
I am too. I'm really impressed with our new leader, who's going to be taking over at our next annual meeting, which I think is in early February.
It is.
But Pat Lano is going to be our new president, and Pat has a lot of really good, solid credentials to be the president of the Arts Council, and has demonstrated to us a real strength that I think is going to be very valuable to the organization.
Not the least of which is that she's a very accomplished musician and teaches in the Ash school system, and has worked with our summer arts program for many, many years. And she has a good administrative mind too.
She really does.
I believe this is going to be very helpful to us. She and I have been working together with you lately, trying to make plans for the transition and for the next year. And again, this is one of those things that really makes me feel confident for the Arts Council and for what's going to happen to us down the road.
I think so too. Now, we're not going to let him get far away, though, because he's going to go on to the Advisory Council again, which is, our Advisory Council is I guess you'd call it a secondary group that surrounds the board. They are folks who, there's about 15 of them, I guess, who are people who have been very, very close to the Arts Council, many of them for a lot of years, and they offer so much strength to the organization because they have resources and abilities that not everyone on the board might have. And so they're literally there as advisors. We have everything from bankers to attorneys to all kinds, various folks of that sort, business folks, and also former board members of the Arts Council, who are folks that have the strength that the board can then go to and say, well, what do you think? How should we handle this, or what should we do about that? They're also our eyes and ears out in the community a lot, listening to what people want to know, want the Arts Council to do or not do or whatever, and sharing that information back to the board. So we really rely on them. So we're not going to let Mike get away from us. He's just going to kind of take a different role. So
there's nothing like being in the background giving advice, a la The Wizard of Oz. I can rattle my...
That's right.
rattle my tin...
You're not going to be a backseat driver, though, are you?
I hope not. I hope not. Honestly, I hope I can continue to actively contribute and not just be in the background. So, once again, we will see what happens down the road.
Now, you mentioned Pat's musical ability, and Mike is also a musician. He's not a music teacher. He teaches a different subject altogether at the university. But why did you get involved with the Arts Council? That's before my time, so I really don't know why you got involved with the Arts Council.
Oh, well, interesting ancient history, at least from my point of view, that I'm an oboe player, which accounts for certain types of insanity.
They say they have to force a lot of air.
And when I first came to Appalachian, that I played with some of the university music groups, and at the time there was an actual symphony going on down in Wilkesboro. I played with them, and in the early 80s, that the Blue Ridge Community Theater became active, and they needed groups for the musicals.
Right.
And I was active in playing with those groups. I was also active in recruiting people to play for those groups. So that connected me with Blue Ridge Community Theater, and I was a president of that for a little while. And then in the mid-'80s, I was not of the first generation of the Arts Council up here.
You narrowly missed it, though.
Just narrowly missed it. I was second generation, and I came on in 1987. And we will not count the years that been involved there. But I came on because initially I was linked to the Blue Ridge Community Theater. And then the Blue Ridge Community Theater went on in its own direction, and I got more and more deeply involved in developing the Arts Council and its programs. And I had served early on as the treasurer, and there's no better way to learn about an organization than to be the treasurer. Then emerged as one of its first presidents. And I had just finished a term as president about the time that you were hired. And this was another one of those times where the bylaws said that you need to take a break. So you were hired, and then I kind of drifted into the background. And I appreciate those comments about how you felt I was helpful back in those early days. But I stayed active, sometimes in the background, sometimes on the board through the 90s. I had some health issues in the mid to late 90s, so kind of stepped back a little bit. And then once I had kind of recovered, I came back on in the about 2006. Came back on, and have worked full time ever since. But my route was music to theater to the broader Arts Council here.
So, no one else in this community probably could answer this question quite like Mike. What does the Arts Council mean to this community in your eyes?
Well, again, if you go back, in my other life, I'm a professor over at Appalachian, and I've taught there for 40 years, which is a long, long time. I've warped many young minds in the process. But when I first came up here, that the available arts in this area was practically nil. There were some programs over at the university, there were some programs down at Lees-McRae, but nothing that really touched the whole area. And when Blue Ridge Community Theater first developed, that was something that drew everybody in. And you could almost see a hunger in the area for activities that were involving the arts. And about the same time that the Blue Ridge Community Theater was organizing and starting to produce its musicals, they finished Farthing Auditorium over at the university, and they were able to start bringing in programs there. And after that, it was like a seed had been planted. The available programs for the arts grew and grew and grew, except there was an area that was missing. And this was the arts and the smaller arts as it was available to members of the smaller arts organizations and to the artists in the area. In 1981, the state perceived a need for community arts programs around the whole state, and they developed a thing called the Grassroots Arts Program. And they said, we need to have a group of people in each county to administer this grassroots program, to help foster the local arts programs, to help the artists, and also to provide venues for the public. And the first Arts Council that we had up here was appointed in 1981, and as I mentioned before, I was the second generation that came on there, and our task at the time was to grow the arts that were not covered by some of these larger programs, like the universities programs, and we did not want to compete with the Blue Ridge Community
And
Theater.
to do it at the grassroots level.
And to do it at the grassroots level, to help these people who maybe nobody knew a lot about grow their own programs. and I've been very proud of what we have done with the grassroots programs over time. If you think about the organizations and individuals that we have fostered over your time with the Arts Council,
and before that,
it's absolutely amazing. We're instrumental in starting the community band. I know that one of my music instructors here. We have had storytelling programs. We have had arts in the schools. We have had programs that we have brought in. There's a little group in town called the Playhouse, which you'd not think about necessarily as being arts, but it is centered around exposing these kids to
the children's playhouse,
children's playhouse and things of that sort. And I could go on listing these things that we have done, and I think a very justifiable pride, not in myself for being part of this, but in feeling the pride in the organization for what it has done.
I know exactly what you're saying, and it's not a self-pride, it is a pride of having been a part of. You know what I mean? And it is a group effort. The Arts Council is not a single person act. Neither Mike nor I or anyone else is the show. It's a group, and it is a community effort, and it means a whole lot to me, and I know to you, to be a part of that effort. You know,
it really does. It really does. That we all. I was kind of struck by the last presidential campaign where they every now and again would talk about President Obama, and he says, well, now this next term, he's got to be thinking about his legacy. And I believe that all of us, when we get to be my stage of life, 40 years teaching and then the 20 plus years here with the Arts Council, is that you begin to think, what is my legacy? What have I done for this community? And again, you don't want to think about yourself as an individual so much as you want to think about the organization. What have you left behind in this organization, and what has this organization left for the community and continues to give to the community?
You know, I mentioned at the beginning a phrase you love dearly, and that's the ebb and flow. And when he first introduced me to that concept, he was really talking about in the course of a year, there are periods of time when the Arts Council is more visible and more active publicly, and then there are times when the Arts Council is kind of quieter and doing more things internally, and then that surges back out again into the community as a result of the quieter time. And I think that we're in an ebb and flow period overall with the organization. I'm looking back over my 20 plus years and seeing an ebb and flow, seeing periods when we were much more visible, much more public, less public, then more public again, doing more visible things, but never at any time were we ever dormant. You know, it was never a period of inactivity, but sometimes the activity levels are more out there where everybody can see it, you know, and sometimes there's things going on behind the scenes. And right now, even though we are doing a lot publicly, I mean, we do have our gift shop and our gallery, and we are doing things with the schools, and we are doing things other places in the community. We are giving out grassroots grants, and we're also just recently gave out regional artist project grants, and a lot of other things that we're doing. But we aren't quite as noisy, maybe, as sometimes in our periods. And so right now we're doing a lot of internal work, and I expect the next couple of months especially to be a period where you may not hear and see as much from the Arts Council as other times, but trust me, there is a lot of activity going on right now. As a matter of fact, we made a timeline recently of what had to get done by when to get all these different things.
Yes, we did.
And it was pretty daunting. So, and Mike is a key part of that, as a lot of other folks. We've got a real solid core of folks.
You didn't say that another one of my favorite saying is that St. Paul got it wrong when he said it's the love of money that's the root of all evil. He really meant it's the love of meetings. And
Mike loves meetings, right?
This has required a lot of time from our volunteers, those that are working at the gallery right now, who are putting in their time to plan and also their time to make sure that there are a piece of people there who know the material that we have put in there and help manage the retail part of that. We have members of our current board who are putting in a lot of time with this planning that has to go on, so that we are in a position to launch out probably this next fall into new and different programs.
Yes.
The ebb and flow that there's always a time when we have to kind of regroup a little bit and say, who are we? What are we going to do next?
And who are we serving?
And who are we serving? Always who are we serving? That we don't exist for just the people in the organization.
Right.
We exist for the community. We exist for the community.
Yeah, the Arts Council is not a club. And I think the definition or the difference between the Arts Council and a club is that a club is more or less for the group that's in the group. You know, that's pretty much what a club's about. But this organization is a service organization, and we serve our community in a multitude of ways. But that also means that we want to know what you want, what you think, what you need. Also, honestly, and I've said this a couple of times already, and I know Mike's heard me say it many times, the community we're working with today is not the community that I started with, and certainly not the community you started with. You just talked about how different our community was when you first started with the Arts Council, and the deprivation of arts that existed at that time. And look around you now. You know, we don't take credit for that, but we take pleasure in that. You know, and are very proud of what this community is doing these days.
I saw a interesting bumper sticker, and I don't know where this one emerged from, but it was a van, and pasted across its back window was, "I left my art in Boone."
Ooh, I haven't seen that one.
And I said, okay, that's kind of neat. I said, now let's expand it. I left my art in Watauga County.
Right.
Because, again, we're not just in Boone, but we're in the whole
Excellent
county.
point. And that's something that I think the Arts Council is particularly wanting to make clear to the community right now, is that we are Watauga County Arts Council. Our mission is to serve the people of Watauga County, whether they live in Boone, or whether they live in Deep Gap, or Todd, or Meat Camp, or Aho, or wherever it is they live. They're part of our community. And that's a big part of who we are, and the reevaluation of what do we do and who do we serve, and are the programs that we have been known for so many years really programs we need to be putting our resources into right now. Everyone right now has limited resources, whether it's money or time or people or whatever it is, and you want to be as efficient as possible with what you have and make it work and do the most it can, you know. And that's what we're looking at. And that's what we're talking about.
Oh, and I was thinking of another thing that that has impressed me with the Arts Council over the time that I've been involved with it, is the dedication and the willingness to work for these goals of the members of its board and the advisory council. I was kind of tickled one day last week that we were at a meeting, and one of the people at the meeting says, "This is almost like work."
Yeah,
I said,
they already have a job.
They already have a job. And what this is saying here is that, the key thing here was, it was the idea of almost like work.
Right.
That there was a tremendous amount of effort that was going into the activities that we were dealing with at that time. A lot of good thinking, a lot of good ideas that were generated from it, a lot of good action plans that were developed, and the ways that we were going to do these things. It was work, and it was taking time that these folks that were doing it might have devoted to their own leisure activities, or in some cases their job, but they were so willing to take that time to work for the arts in Watauga County.
Because they felt like they were accomplishing something.
They did.
And that's really, really important. Now, one thing I want to bring up is how you can get involved. You can get involved by just merely participating, but there's more that you could do too. Now, there's all kinds of degrees. We recently sent out a letter under Mike's signature inviting you to make a financial contribution to the Arts Council, and that is critical at this point in time. we noticed something very, very interesting, and we were not the only arts council that noticed this, so I think it's significant to a lot of communities, a lot of people, is that when the recession hit, our business contributions of the time dropped fairly significantly for obvious reasons, but our private donations actually took an upswing.
They did. They did. Now, this is another one of those interesting things that, you know, when I mentioned earlier that when I first came up here, that there was a real dearth of arts-related activities. People were looking for these activities. Now that we have the recession, and hopefully that's out of the way right now, that and the businesses had to kind of back off a little bit from helping out the arts, the people in the community have risen to the cause. And what they're telling us here is that they believe in the ideals of the arts and what the arts will contribute to the community.
And they value what we're doing.
And they value those folks who are trying to enhance the arts in this area. And thankfully, a lot of that is our folks that are on the board right now.
And that's where you know, if you would like to be a participant, one of the best ways to be a participant is to be a member of the Arts Council. And to be a member, you simply make a contribution at whatever level is appropriate for your situation, and that can vary considerably. We have members of a wide range of financial levels as well as participation levels. Also, you can become a volunteer. We need more and more and more volunteers, and we have, as you can hear, great ideas hatching and wonderful programs developing, and we're going to need people. We're going to need more hands on deck to make all those things happen. So this is an open invitation to come get involved with the Arts Council. So there's so many different things. What other, am I leaving anything else out? They can always be a board member at some point in time too, you know. They can become the next Mike after that. But seriously, I mean, there are just a variety of ways that you can support the arts. And on the back of this letter that we sent out, Jen Teague, who is one of our board members, had found a listing of reasons to support the arts. And it's actually put out by Americans for the Arts, and I certainly would be happy to share it with you. I should put it on our website.
Yes, you should.
Because it lists 10 very, very, very valid reasons why you should be a participant in the arts and why you should support the arts. And I think that there were all kinds of things in that. There was everything from quality of life to economic development.
Well, you know, we could go into that at another time. That I don't know that everybody realizes how important the arts are to the economics of an area.
That's exactly right.
And we have been the beneficiaries of studies that have been done over the time that I've been in the Arts Council. And every time that we've seen one of these reports come in from legitimate economics analysis, that we see that upwards of $1 million,
$26 million in 2004 were documented as 26 plus as coming into Watauga County every year just because of the arts. And that number was before Turchin. It was before several things in the community that have happened. And so look at what's going on now. I mean, it's bigger than that. When the timing is right and the finances are right, those studies aren't cheap to do. I would love to see us do another full-scale study. We partnered with the economic development folks, the chambers and the university, to help this study get done, and it's about time to do another one. You know, maybe by 2014 we could do a 10-year comparison.
Wouldn't that be nice? It would. And then we have, I think, data from even before that.
Right, and it takes about a year to do a study too. Yeah.
But here's what's emerging is that there's a part that the love of the arts and the willingness to work for the arts. There is the quality of life that the arts give to the community itself, and then there is this economic benefit that the arts bring to the community.
That's right.
It is a significant impact. And you look at what we have up here.
That's right.
And what has emerged, again, the 40 years that I have been here, from virtually nothing to what exists right now.
And communities that have strong arts communities are more viable, not just in quality of life, but financially more viable, also educationally more viable.
Oh gosh, yes.
You know, the children learn, we're big fans of the multiple intelligence theory. And what that basically means is that one child learns better by doing, one by hearing, one by seeing. You know, there are various ways that people absorb information. I'm a visual learner. Mike, I don't know, you may be an auditory learner.
I am.
Yeah. And so, you know, everyone has their own way of doing it. And one of the values that the arts brings to education is giving children opportunities to learn the same material in a way that works for them. And we worked a lot with the schools over many years, and one of the things we worked with was A+ schooling, which was very much in that direction. We've had a very strong educational program for a very long time. We are revising that program and changing it because the needs have changed, and so things are moving along.
Bottom line on that is that we who are in the grandparent business, that, what's one of the things that really will lift you up is the art that you put on your refrigerator.
Oh yeah.
Who does that?
Or on your bulletin board in your office.
Or as my two grandchildren did one time, the art that they did to the art in the art gallery.
Oh yes, that's a story unto itself. We'll have to share that with you sometime.
But I think in children there's a kind of an innate drive to be creative.
All children are artists.
And they want to draw, they want to make musical sounds, and they will dance, and it's all uninhibited. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like when we get so involved with the academics that we flatten out that creative urge.
And our confidence level goes down, and
it does.
You know.
It does. That there's a commercial on TV about somebody who says, "I can't dance." Well, you know, he probably could when he was 6 years old.
Exactly, and he probably still could again.
But the trick for our arts in the schools program is to keep that creative energy, keep fostering that creative energy, and see that it continues until they kids reach adulthood. And once I think that you mentioned the idea of the multiple intelligence here, is that this creativity that is fostered by doing arts in the schools is reflected in the work. Cherry and I have periodically gone out and visited with businesses in the communities, and we have she's been interested in seeing if they would get involved with our arts placement program, among others. One of the things that I've really been kind of intrigued with is to see how in the management of these businesses, artistic and creative ideas are applied.
Yes, and that's a bigger and bigger thing in the business world. You know, creativity is valued more than a lot of other skills. You know, it's something that the big business world, I mean, corporate world, is recognizing more and more.
It is. It is. It's not just the chewing out the numbers, profit versus loss, but the imagination that goes into developing, pushing your own particular product. And the idea here is that if we can start with little children, we can foster the growth of that thing up into the people who are going out into the world, whether they become business entrepreneurs or retailers or teachers. That I got to brag a little bit about my two daughters, one of whom is an arts major, one of whom is a school teacher currently. And I watched my school teacher daughter operate in her classroom and seen how exposure to the arts has helped her along.
Exactly.
The other daughter, the art major, she was kind of a sellout. That she went from art to being a stockbroker, and even in her stockbroker's work, she uses many of these skills and these
Which makes her more valuable.
And it certainly made her more valuable to the organization she works with.
Exactly. One other thing that, and we're going long, and I don't want to get us into too long of a stretch, but one other thing that we have valued and done a lot with over the years is also a preservation or a showcasing of our local culture through the arts. And that's another piece of what we value very much at the Arts Council. There's so many pieces to talk about. We're going to run out of time. We're going to have to come bring you back.
We may have to do this again, but the preservation of tradition, I think, is so important too. That just because something existed before television doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. And
it's actually a rediscovery almost.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And these folks who are able to use continue to use these old traditional art forms, tremendously valuable resource.
And we've hardly scratched the surface. There's so much more visual arts. We've hardly even talked about that. That's a major part of the Arts Council. That's one thing cool about the Arts Council. It also makes it hard to explain the Arts Council because it is so multifaceted. There are so many pieces to the Arts Council. It's never, you know, I one time told Mike when they need to replace me, they're going to need to find someone who is ADHD, let's see, schizophrenic, obsessive compulsive, all these different traits, because you can't, especially the ADHD part, you can't keep up with so many pieces if you're too linear a thinker.
I think that's very true. It's very true.
So it's really important that you be able to kind of have that, I can think about this and then I can work on that. But it does mean that we got more to talk about than we can possibly ever fit into one interview. So I'm going to bring Mike back to talk to you again. And we'll talk more about the value of the Arts Council and what it does for this community and what the different pieces that we can involve you in.
We would like to see you as part of the Arts Council, very much so.
Very much. Mike, I want to thank you. You've become a dear friend over the years.
Well, thank you very much.
And you do so much for this community that so many people have no idea, and maybe they're starting to get a hint of it, but you do a lot. And I just want to thank you for all you've done and all you do and all you do for me. And I want you to become as involved in the Arts Council as you possibly can. And so you need to check our website, watauga-arts.org. I'll put those 10 reasons up there. Check it for this and a whole lot more.
Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.